welcome to the Other 14 FC podcast. I'm Alex, Crystal Palace fan.
And I'm Tom, a West Ham fan.
And this is your podcast for everything not top six. Tired of your team being last on match of the day and not getting the flowers they deserve? Well, that's about to change because we're going to give those teams the flowers they deserve. What do we have coming up this week, Tom?
So, kicking off 2 preview episodes for the season. We're going to go through the other 14 teams who finished in the top half of the table in this episode. Then next week we'll be going through those who finished in the bottom half. So today we've got Newcastle, Aston Villa, Forest, Brighton, Bournemouth and Brentford. Okay, they finished 10th, but still it had to divvy it up. And we've got some fan voices included on that, so it'd be good to hear from them as well.
Yeah, I love how none of our teams are in the first week's episode.
Yeah, stay for the misery banter in the next week's episode.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we just want to caveat it with we're doing this early in the summer, so a few things may be out of date, but yeah, hopefully everything hasn't changed too much in that.
Yeah, there's going to be it'll be a big summer for them, and they may have addressed all of those needs in the next couple of weeks. But, you know, Alex thought the summer would be a great time to go jolly off to America. So, you know, we're having to pre-record.
Yeah, I think we're just doing it so we seem like we Mystic Megs and know everything right. Do you know what I mean? That's what it is. When we get absolutely everything wrong, it's going to be brilliant. But how's your last week been since we last caught up anyway? Get up to anything interesting?
Yeah, good man. I had some time off work, so unfortunately didn't go anywhere, but had like nice chill at home, took advantage of the weather, like went to the park and that, and I downloaded The Last of Us Part 2 and started playing that for the first time, so got some gaming in as well.
Nice, that's happy days all round then, ain't it? Yeah. I can tell you're looking bored in the off-season of football, aren't you?
I'm just trying to find any different thing. I'm like 6 seasons into Football Manager now, and it's just destroying my laptop.
Worst thing is you only started that like when the Premier League ended.
Legit, I've spent days on it this summer. What about you then, mate? How you been?
Yeah, all good. I went to see Oasis in Manchester last weekend, so that probably timestamps us quite well. But yeah, that was amazing. It was so weird to be at a concert where there was like basically 100,000 people and everyone knew every word to every song. It was just like, it was crazy. Like, I do love my gigs and everything, but it was a bit of a different level really, where I don't want to sound like really up my own arse, but like some songs like transcend being songs with them at this point, don't they? And it was mental.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an Oasis fan, but I can appreciate and understand like the sentiment and like the atmosphere sort of being a bit special at those.
Yeah, and because it was homecoming in Manchester as well, it was awesome. But then the maddest thing I've discovered, since the football season's finished, I've lost 6 kg. And I was just there like thinking, how has this happened? I was like, oh yeah, having like fry-ups and unlimited pints and fried chicken all weekend has probably helped me out here.
Yeah, all the away trips where you're just drinking from like 8 a.m. probably not helping.
Yeah, I think we should manufacture the non-off-season football diet or something and give that to people moving forward.
You're going to need to write a book for it, mate.
It's literally, I've got like a little graph on an app, and it's like as soon as a week after the FA Cup final, it's like it all starts going down, and I'm like, fuck me, it's so obvious. But I'm going to do
diet tips.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop watching football.
Stop watching football. Get into something like swimming or whatnot. But yeah. Cool. Okay, should we take a break, then get into our previews from all our teams?
Let's do it.
Okay, and we're back. So, like Tom said, we're going to start with, in table order. So, we'll start with Newcastle as they finished highest out of the other 14 teams. So, I think we all know Newcastle had a pretty good season, finished 5th in the league with 66 points and a plus 21 goal difference, with their top scorer being Isaac, with 23 goals overall. So, yeah, we'll jump into Scott, who has left us a kind voice note as a Newcastle fan.
Well, Scott here, Newcastle fan. Thanks for the invite, Alex. In terms of hopes for next year, I think so much of this depends on the business done in the next month. As I'm saying this, Elanga has just been announced about 15 minutes ago, which is a great start. I think he's expensive, but at the end of the day, 6 goals, 11 assists last season, only 23. Playing with his fellow Swede, Isak, up front, I think that could be a really exciting signing because him, Isak and Gordon up front, Tonali, Joelinton and Bruno just behind. That's a good front three, but we need more. Trafford, Burnley keeper, has been spoken about a lot, and although I don't think that's the most important position, competition for Pope, he's probably going to be the future England number one. But we need way more. I think our hopes do entirely depend on squad depth for next year, because the last time we were in the Champions League, we just couldn't hack it. Too many injuries, not enough squad depth. We had the likes of young Lewis Miley playing home and away at PSG. So we need more players in. Wilson's just left the club today, so that means we've got Isak, and then the young lad Osula is our only other striker. So we need a third choice striker, another centre back, another sentinel midfielder. So a lot depends on what happens in the next few weeks. But good start with Elanga. In terms of the hopes, it's got to be top four. We want to establish ourselves as one of these teams. So the hope would be top four, top five minimum, and hopefully that will be enough for Champions League again next year, the way things have been this last year. But it's going to be way harder next year because everyone's improved their squad so much. Liverpool are going mental with their signings. Really good business. Arsenal maybe getting Gyökeres. Chelsea have bought a few good players. And then, man, you've bought good players as well. But blimey, they've got a lot of ground to make up. But in terms of hopes, it's going to be hard to top last year. As you know, Alex, winning our first cup in 70 years for us, it was, one of the best days of my life watching that. So it'll be hard to top that. Champions League football as well, it'll be hard to top last year. The hopes would be top five minimum. Another good cup run. Hopefully go a bit deeper in the FA Cup this year. We had an unlucky loss to Brighton last year because Gordon got himself sent off for being a dafty. And then the Champions League, absolutely buzzing for that. Cannot wait to see the fixtures for the Champions League. So hopefully some good fixtures in there and go deep like Villa did, maybe the quarterfinals or something like that. And then the Tyne Weir derby has to be a double. Buzzing for those games. But top five, good run in the Champions League, another good cup run. That's what I'm looking for.
Cool. Cheers, Scott from Aberdeen, for that one. Yeah, I think Scott touched on a lot of stuff that we spoke about last season, really, when it comes to squad depth at Newcastle. That's the main thing to whine about with the Champions League and wanting to get further in the Cups. Would you agree with that, Tom?
100%. The arrival of Anthony Elanga is really important for Newcastle. Some of me feels that Jacob Murphy is probably due a little bit of regression. I think he outperformed his sort of role this season. He had a really, really good season, but is he going to be able to repeat that next season? Unlikely. So bringing someone of Elanga's quality in on that right side when you have the options of Barnes or Gordon on the left side, I think that's just going to really improve competition for places, increase the squad depth. But as Scott says, there's quite a bit more sort of depth improvement that they need to do. We've sort of said multiple times, they've got the best midfield three out, challenging with the top six. They've got one of the midfield threes that some of those teams might want as well. But they don't have many depth behind it. Like Scott's saying, of Lewis Miley having to play against home and away against PSG in the last Champions League, and they have not really done a lot to replace sort of backup level players. But with the Champions League, and as I think Scott alluded to, the expectation and really the hope is just pretty much same again. They had such a good season.
You're right about the expectation and stuff, really, because he's even pointing out clubs like Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool as the ones they're now competing with because of the steps they've taken in the past few years. And it's crazy to think now of Newcastle, isn't it, from where they were to where they are now. They have to be looking upwards, but like Scott says, how do you improve on top of a domestic cup and Champions League in one season?
Well, obviously the Champions League is going to be the star of the show, And if they can get to the quarterfinals of that, maybe they'll take that having just won a trophy last season rather than winning another domestic trophy. They might, usually I'd say, go for the trophy. The success will bring you sort of lasting memories and stuff. But coming so freshly off the Carabao Cup win last year, they might think, well, we'd rather actually a deeper run in the Champions League. It's a little bit more glitzy and glamorous, and might suit sort of Newcastle where they want to be.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me, in all honesty. I mean, there's word of them wanting to move to a new stadium as well. So you think they want to be securing some Champions League money for the next few years to be fair, does that money help out with PSR? Because I was talking to Scott recently actually about it. It's like they've got all that money, but they can't actually spend it because of PSR issues.
Well, yeah, exactly. They've got, but it will be because it will be income. So like the Champions League income will be sort of able to count against that, so they need to. And they have been doing so, but they need to build consistency in both like the league and in Europe, and become because that's where they want to be. That's where the finances should be, and it's obviously in a PSR world taken a little bit of back and forth rather than we've seen previous clubs manage to do it before PSR sort of thing, and they could break that barrier maybe a little bit easier. Whereas now they've got to toe the line a little bit more carefully. But I think Scott has nailed it on with sort of like getting the midfield reinforcements in, getting the forward reinforcements. There's also probably a couple of defensive ones that I'd point out as well. Like I think Livramento and Hall are excellent fullbacks, but beyond them, you've got an aging Trippier was kicking around. Like I think Matt Target is still contracted to the club. Like. Hall had a really serious injury, and you can play Dan Burn over there, but it's like you're juggling players around rather than having quality backups, which in the Champions League and domestic cups, what they want to be achieving, you kind of need two players for each position. So I think that's also where like James Trafford comes into like Newcastle's thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it touches on what we spoke about last week with, obviously, it was Alex from Burnley, wasn't it, about keeping hold of Trafford. And I guess we did have the dilemma of if he comes up for Burnley, does he have a strong season or does he revert back into that season he had last time with Company's tactics, which I don't think will be the case. But then if he goes to Newcastle and he's back up to Nick Pope, I feel that probably gives him a stronger foundation to like actually learn to play the position, learn a bit more about the Premier League and come out stronger if he is playing like a League Cup game here, maybe an FA Cup game here. Would you agree?
Yeah, possibly. It's one of those that can be kind of difficult to tell. He might do great from like sitting for a year or two and learning under Nick Pope and playing just in the domestic cups, or it might hinder his development a little bit because he's not playing week in, week out. But obviously playing behind Newcastle's back line is probably going to be a better situation than playing behind Burnley's back line as a newly promoted team. So it's one of those that I think it would probably be a good move for Trafford.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. One thing I don't agree with Scott on, and I told him this to his face, to be fair as well, I think they're getting beaten home and away by Sunderland in the derby this year. I think that's the one thing that's nailed on for this season, no matter what.
I think last week you said Sunderland are going to get Conference League football, so they've got to get some points from somewhere.
No, I think I even said last week that's the 2 games that they're certain to win no matter what. Oh, cool. Anything else you want to touch on from Newcastle? I think Scott covered quite a lot there, and I think we've picked the bones out of it quite well as well.
Yeah, let's move on to Villa.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so do you want to introduce Villa this time?
Sure. So Villa obviously finished 6th with final day heartbreak last year, so missing out on the Champions League and finishing in a Europa League spot with 66 points and a +7 goal difference, and their top scorer was Ollie Watkins.
Nice. And we have Steve from Birmingham to run us through with a video note for us.
I think the feeling is mixed throughout the fan base, to be completely honest. I think the demands of European football over the last couple of seasons really did take its toll towards the end of the season. Not only last season, but the season before. If you look at where we got to in the Europa Conference League and sort of falling short, but we also pushed for Champions League football. But I think the demands of Champions League football certainly took its toll last season. But I think it really did show how competitive we can be in European competitions. And also the rotation of the squad was excellent last season too. I think if we can keep the core of our key players, like Martinez is a huge one. If we can keep him, that'd be excellent. If we can keep Kamara, that's also a very, very good coup. But also Morgan Rogers, but I can't see us wanting to cash in on him. I think the fact that we've been managed to find a loophole and sell the women's team to ease the PSR concerns is excellent. So I think you can see us look to strengthen the squad towards the start of the season. If we can add some good attacking players, particularly, and also I think we need another centre half and particularly a right back. Then I think we can be competitive. I think in hindsight, not getting into Champions League football or not getting into the Champions League is probably, it's not the worst thing in the world, because realistically we're never going to win it. But I think the Europa League gives us a really good platform to see if we can really push on and win that and fight for silverware. But the fact that we've coped with the demands of European football and have had two really strong finishes in the Premier League or certainly suggests that we'll be in a position where we'll finish strongly again this season. But it's going to be competitive. I think that we should be in the top six again, but let's hope this is the season we can win something. If Spurs can win the Europa League, surely we can win it too. But let's see where next season brings us. But certainly hopeful. So up the Villa.
Cheers, Steve. What a lovely young gentleman he seemed like from that. What were your takes on everything Steve was trying to say there, Tom?
Yeah, I completely agree with Steve's opinions about Villa. I think the bright lights of the Champions League sparked up Villa Park last year. I think they left a lot of lasting memories, and I think dropping down into the Europa League might be beneficial. I think it's Unai Emery's competition, isn't it? I think he won it 3 times with Sevilla.
Well, I want to caveat that now Palace have dropped out of the Europa League, they're confident because they ain't going to play us again. I literally got messages from him straight away being like, "Oh, we're going to win it now because we ain't going to face you in it." But yeah, I think you're right. Like you say, it's Unai's tournament, and it gives them a chance to get a European title. And if they got a European title, knowing what Villa Park's like, my God, that would be immense for them. I know, obviously, what was it, the game against PSG, you see it rocking there, but I guess you know better than most people as well. Getting a European trophy, no matter what it is, it changes the feeling in the fan base, and it's just an unforgettable moment.
100%, and I think the Europa League in recent years has got quite strong. I think obviously last year was maybe a little bit of a down year with the final being a boring one between 2 of the top 6, but this some of the nights West Ham have had against Sevilla, against Bayer Leverkusen and stuff, the Europa League puts you up against interesting teams across the continent, and I think Villa will absolutely love that. I think as we saw with the Champions League, they really took to it and they really enjoyed those nights. And the one thing I will say is Villa need to aim for more consistency in the league. Mm-hmm. If they're going to finish in the top 6, as Steve has pointed out, then they're going to need to improve on what they struggled with in the first sort of half of last season, where they kind of maybe let their league form drop a little bit and prioritise Champions League nights. But that kind of made them pay at the end of the day. Obviously, we know the last game of the season, it feels like they got a bad decision and they could have got Champions League football. But really, I think all Villa fans realised that the first several months of the Premier League campaign is where they dropped those points that would have got them Champions League football at the end of the day, dropping too many draws and stuff. And I think that's where they need to balance it a little bit more. With the Europa League, maybe obviously being a step down from competition-wise from the Champions League, maybe they were able to balance that Thursday-Sunday fixture list a bit better.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. And I mean, we're seeing similarities between what Steve and Scott are saying. They're both looking and wanting more depth in almost similar areas, wasn't it? In the centre-backs, it's crazy to think.
I think it has to be at that level. I think when you're playing, as I say, for Villa, Thursday, Sunday, you need a lot of depth. And it was as David Moyes at West Ham just wouldn't rotate, really. It was lucky that we had a couple of games where we were winning, so we could rest a few players, but otherwise he would play the same team, and it kind of the next season after it really diminished their sort of energy. But I think like one thing about Villa I will say is that they're always going to be interesting in the transfer market with Monchi as their like sporting director kind of role. Like they always seem to be in on these swap deals that aren't swap deal kind of like transfers, or they sell John Duran rather than Ollie Watkins. Like there's always something interesting going on with transfers and Villa.
Well, because Steve touches on that as well, and maybe not on transfers, but with the PSR selling the women's team, like a bit of what's happened with the Europa League stuff at Palace has made me think, why the hell should a team try and follow the rules anymore? Like, if you can sell your women's team and it gets you around a loophole, why not do it? I mean,
that's what everyone's doing now is loopholes.
Yeah.
I think everyone was laughing at Chelsea handing out these 8-9 year contracts, and now other teams are cottoning on that. Actually, it's a great way to like amortize the finances of a contract, and I think they're becoming more common.
yeah, I mean, I think both of us as like truists of football don't want to see that happening, but at the end of the day, what have you got to do to survive against stuff like that? It's just, but yeah, it's not the purest form, but yeah, it's something I guess we have to just accept moving forward, which sucks big time. But like Steve said, Villa are going to take advantage of it. You don't want to be the ones left behind. You want to be the ones in a position where you're going to be looking for Champions League or Europa League football.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice. Anything else you want to touch on Villa before we move on to Nottingham Forest?
Nah, let's go to Forest.
Nice, cool. Okay, so Forest finishing 7th. I know they were a bit disappointed with that finish, in all honesty, even though, well, just because the campaign before the last few months had been so good. Finished 7th with 65 points and 12 plus goal difference, with top scorer being Chris Wood with 20 goals. I believe we have Mark, who's also sent us in a video note. So let's see what Mark has to say.
Hey up, Alex and Tom. Plenty here from 100 Things We Learned from Film podcast. When I'm not watching films and reading Wikipedia entries for movie production companies that haven't existed in 20 odd years, I am an avid Forest fan. What do I expect this season? After 24-25, who knows? I mean, we were written off by the pundits, football writers and those other tubes on Arsenal Fan TV. We, the fans, knew something was brewing at the start of last season, but I don't think anyone expected some of the results that we got. We're talking Liverpool away, historic doubles over United and Spurs, despite the fact they were shit last year. Smashing 7 past Brighton, you're welcome, Alex. A Wembley semi, and of course Europe for the first time in 30 years. I'd love to say we'll see more of the same, but I am tempering my expectations just that little bit. Nuno loves a small squad. Without high impact, hard working press being utilised every Thursday and Sunday, it could spell a long season for the lads. I think like every other team in the other 14, other than Sunderland, who are playing the newly promoted Forest game, about 8 players bought in the first week of the transfer window. Go on, lads. The lack of transfers is already starting to worry our fan base. Igor Jesus is in. He scored against PSG in that stupid Club World bollocks that's going on. Seems to have been going on for like 3 months, that. But looks like he could be the real deal to support Woody up front. Alanga, I think he's probably, as I'm recording this, on his way to Newcastle for 55 million. We'll see about 40 million of that after the sell-on to Man United. I'm not sure I could replace him for that, but Edu and the scouting team will have irons in the fire, and Daddy Marinakis is not afraid to throw cash at problems. In my opinion, we need depth to support. So I'm talking an excellent first 11, plus another 5 to 7 players that want to play for the badge, this badge. And don't mind Thursday nights in Lithuania, the Irish Republic, wherever. I'll take 10th in the league and a 2-1 win in the final of the Europa Conference League against Fiorentina. You know what I'm saying, Tom? Great podcast, lads. Keep it up. And good luck for the season ahead to all the other 14. Yes, even Brentford's XG virgins. May we all get a chance to upset the Sky Sports pundits this season.
Amazing. Cheers, Mark, aka Planty. And yeah, so if anyone's interested in Mark's podcast, 100 Things We Learned from Film podcast, we'll get Tom to stick that in the show notes for you moving forward. But yeah, a lot of good insight and a lot of nice things there from Mark for both of us, in all honesty. Just wanted to say for him as well, I mean, are you saying hoping for a 2-1 win in the Europa Conference final? You can probably upgrade that now to 2-1 win in Europa League final. So yeah, I mean, since he recorded that, for us to have got an even better off season, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, when do we want to discuss this? Because it's like, obviously quite heartbreaking for you, but now is probably a perfect time to discuss it, with Forest taking that spot and going into the Europa League.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to discuss it too much because we're still probably going to put another appeal in. I think as recording, there's like a fan march protest on it. Like, as a Palace fan, and I may be one of the only ones, it's got to the point where I just want it to be over now. I just want to know what competition we're in, and let's just go ahead with it. Like, yes, it's disappointing we're not going to be, well, we may not be in Europa League, but if we finished seventh in the league and got it, we would have been really happy. It's just, yeah, I try and turn off from football as much as possible a bit in the off season, but this just chugging along for weeks, and then I lost complete, like, not care, but real interest in it when it went to the Lyon, like, getting relegated from Liga and then going to the DNCG and shit like that, and Texter's money. Like, Texter is the reason we're not there because they missed the 1st of March deadline, but it all doesn't feel very pleasant or nice either, really. It's all just, like, it's obviously left a bit of a sour taste in the mouth, but I just want us to know what league we're in, and we'll go ahead with it. Like Mark said in a lot of that as well. Like, I don't mind league away days in Ireland or in AEK Limassol. So my family are from Cyprus, like Limassol as well. If I got an away day there, like, that'd be amazing on a Thursday night for me. There's still big teams in the Conference League as well. There's like Fiorentina in there, Besiktas. There's enough away days, but I'm not devastated by the news, if I'm being brutally honest.
It's like we said like the silver lining for Forest fans. I think all the same applies that we said back then after the season. Like, it'll be a great competition for Palace to be in, given they've not been in Europe before. It's also much more likely that they're going to win games against those teams, so you might be able to go on a run, like as we saw West Ham did. And whilst the Europa League is obviously a little bit more glitzy glamour, you come up against some better teams. Like the Conference League, being able to win that trophy brings a smile to my face every time I think about it. So I completely agree with you. I think, like, you just want to find out at this point, and probably by the time this is out, we'll know a little bit more maybe. But let's bring it back to Forest.
Yeah, 100%, because I want to just say, like, I don't want to caveat too much Palace there, because Mark brought so much good stuff to the table for us. And yeah, I mean, one thing I really hope, bringing it back to Palace a tiny bit, I really hope there's no, like, animosity between Forest and Palace fans. But, like, it's so stupid. Like, I feel like we're to a fan base that have always, like, not had, like, important games against each other, but, like, always enjoyed the company of each other's fans. And I hope that this doesn't spoil it. Like, Forest writing a letter thing, I think that's all a load of nonsense. Not from Forest doing it. I think the media playing it up is a load of nonsense. And yeah,
I mean, I think there might be some fun banter. I hope it, like when you're at the game, sort of thing. Like, there might be some chants to and from, like, "Oh, we got you kicked out of Europe," etc. I think something like that. I don't imagine this will get nasty, because it all feels a lot like bureaucracy rather than actually, like, the fans doing anything.
Exactly that. But yeah, let's go into some of the things Mark picked out there. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So Forest are probably, like, I think Mark says, like, they've got quite a bit they need to do. Like, obviously they sort of tailed off towards the end of the season. They were up there chasing in the title race at one point, and then they finished 7th. And those last couple of months, they weren't really able to string any consistency together. They've lost Anthony Elanga now, so what does the attack look like? Like, Chris Wood's another year into his 30s, coming off one of an insane season, but again struggled in the later months. Gibbs White might be off. Hudson-Odoi had injuries towards the end of the season.
I just want to cut in there. I don't think Gibbs White's going. This is going to be famous last words, and when this comes out, he's probably gone. I just don't see it. I don't see him leaving Forest yet, maybe. Like, why not give it a go in the Conference League or Europa League now with Forest and see how you go? Get that feel of European football in a team where you're the focal point, rather than going what's he linked with Spurs and, like, maybe playing here, maybe playing there. But I feel like Spurs have so many people in that one position as well. It's like, why not do it for us for one more year and just see where you can get to with it? I think it helps him evolve as a player as well. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's off.
I think another year I think he's still quite young, so like another year at Forest playing in the Conference League, the Europa League, could do really well for him. But is he going to want to stick around when they've lost, like, Elanga, and they might sort of, like, I don't know, the regression in the league might happen a bit more. Do they have the squad depth to do Thursday, Sundays? Because
that's the question, really, isn't it?
Like they had a really good 11, but then apart from their sort of like one or two players, I don't really trust like their replacements. Like that one thing they've done really well is keeping the defence together. I know Nico Williams and I think Ola Aina have signed contract extensions. Not hearing anything really about Murillo going, which is quite surprising.
I was about to say, keeping Murillo is massive because even last year, well, just throughout the season, a lot of my Forest fans at work were just like, yeah, where he's going to be gone, someone's going to snap him up. And he is vital to that team as well. Like, it's...
Yeah, and then like as we said in the team of the season, like Matt Sells is their regression there. Like he had a, like similar to Wood, he had a career season for him. Milenkovic, like, can he like keep up the level that he was playing at last season? They've, as I say, they've done well to keep the defence together, but is there going to be some regression in how they play over the course of a season when they have the additional Thursday Sunday challenge? That's one thing that I'm particularly worried about for Forest.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a massive thing for us is going to be how they start the season. Like, if they go off on a good foot with it, I feel like all the good times, all the momentum from last year kind of rebuilds again. But I feel like if there's a couple of losses in those first few games, it could be like the tension that I feel like most fans were feeling for them at the end of the season could grow back in. I mean, the first 3 games, Brentford, Palace, West Ham, it's a pretty nice run to begin with, I'm not going to lie, even though both our teams are in there. If they get away with in those 7 points, I can see them being on that upward spiral again and Nuno like taking them away a bit more, but it is who they bring in. Like Mark said, that on the transfer front it is a bit quiet at the moment for them, and they really, I guess they do need to fill up the squad a bit more, don't they, to be able to do that rotation throughout the weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're looking to like the Brazilian market quite a bit, but is that like the best market for players to come in and kick on straight away, or will they often Brazilian players take a while to settle? Like, so
that market's from Botafogo, all of John Textor's players, because John Textor, Marinakis have like this weird bromance of selling each other players, even though this is what I mean about it being such a weird bullshitty thing.
We're not going into the Omar Bamadeli conspiracy theory.
Oh, good lord. But yeah, I mean, I really hope Forest don't regress this season, because I feel they have a fan base that deserves to have like a lot of fun going through the season, and I hope as well they remember, even if it wasn't as good as last year, they keep like, what's the word I'm looking for? Keep a level head with it all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Forest fans have got a saner head than that, but you never know. Some bad results and they could start turning. But
yeah. Nice. Cool. I want to thank Mark for that massively, and also thank you for the 7-0 win against the team we'll look to move on to next. So yeah, moving on to Brighton, who finished 8th. I mean, I think Brighton fans probably wanted a bit more last season. Would you agree, Tom? What?
Yeah, they finished 8th. To be fair, it was Fabian Hertzler's first season. Yeah. We've got a write-in from Guy Hirati to give us our Brighton fans' perspective, so
wait,
I'll read it out for him.
Didn't let me read out the stats first. You're going ahead.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. So yeah, finished 8th, 61 points, 7 goal difference, and they had 3 top scorers in Matoma, Welbeck and Pedro with 10 goals each. So yeah, cool. I'll let you take it away now, Tom.
Yes, so Guy Hirati wrote in, last season was a pretty big jump from 23-24, plus 13 points and a new manager willing to adapt and change. We struggled with injuries, having the worst of the entire league in most metrics, and still achieved 8th, which was only a bit off what I expected from us at 7th. Towards the end of the season, we saw many players come into their own. Wiefer and Gruder especially really improved. Starting from Newcastle in the FA Cup, Gruder started looking like everything we were promised and more. Wiefer really started to look like a high-level Prem performer and looked like an excellent backup for a fullback. Some players on loan really caught his eye. Malik Yakoule was top class on loan at Sturm Graz in the Champions League and in Austria. He really liked the look of Andrew Moran, Irish bias, on loan at Stoke, one of their best consistent players. And consistency was something that he felt they lacked and really held them back last season. They've signed statistically one of, if not the best, Eredivisie centre-back in Olivier Basagli. the best left back in the Belgian Pro League in Maxim de Kuiper, and one of the best under-21 centre-backs in the world in Diego Coppola. The best talent to come out of Greece in years in Charalampos Kostelas. Already a full season of professional football under his belt, and he was only 17 when he played. He thinks really it's looking bright for them. However, the departures of João Pedro will obviously hurt, and potential departures of Estupinan, O'Reilly, Ayari could harm. But he thinks they will achieve European football this year, and anything less than 8th, unless they get another mad injury crisis, will be a season to forget. What do you think?
No, so I'd just say, well read, Tom. Tom is available to read you bedtime stories if you wish, at a minimal fee.
I already read them to Alex, so...
Love it. But yeah, I want to start with something I think I've said about Brian before. I'm not going to lie, I don't know most of those signings, but I know they're going to turn up and probably put in a fucking brilliant game against Palace as most of the league. Like, you just know their scouting system is going to bringing in young talent that will then end up playing really well and earning them another 100 million like each time.
100%, yeah. I think we called it out towards the end of the season that they needed some defensive personnel changes. I'm sure you're very happy to see the back of Lewis Dunk and hope that his career is fully on the decline now at 33.
I want him to keep playing, if I'm being brutally honest. I don't want him gone, but yeah, like their defenders are coming in are looking like the business, and this is the first time. Well, no, I worry about Brighton doing well every season, obviously, but this is the first time in a long time when I'm there like, fuck, it could all start clicking for them big time now. Like, yeah, they lost Pedro, but I think he was vital to them last season, just scoring like not momentous, like game-changing goals for them a lot. Like every time Brighton needed a goal, it seemed to be Pedro either winning the penalty, scoring a penalty, or scoring a goal here and there. But I think losing him, weirdly, they might become a stronger team, and it gives Hertzler like this first season of knowing what the Premier League's like, knowing there's probably going to be a dip at some point. How do you get out of it? What's going to happen with injuries? Like, he knows how to take the league. Not that he didn't take it seriously, but he knows the ins and outs of the league a bit better. And he's probably going to fucking storm it and get them Europa League or something. And it absolutely terrifies me. And they're going to want big revenge against us with the double from last year. Yeah, I think Guy is clearly very knowledgeable about everything that's happening at Brighton over the summer as well. And it's just... I'm pretty scared this season about how good Brighton could be.
Yeah, I think they've absolutely got to build on Hertzler's first season. I think anything less than 8th or like sort of challenging for a European spot or maybe going in deep in one of the domestic cups would be a disappointment for them. I think, as you say, like Hertzler would have learnt a lot from last season. There was a period, I think, in sort of February, March where they had a run of defeats, and that they were able to recover from that by the end of the season, but kind of did damage to their European hopes in that period. But I think with the loss of Pedro, and I think Guy sort of referred to him specifically, we'll be looking at a lot more Brajan Gruda, the young German who sort of plays in like a number 10 or can play either sort of the wing spots. But I think that's sort of like, they might not necessarily be looking for a direct replacement for Pedro and hoping that Gruda comes and steps into the team, because in attack they've still got Danny Welbeck, as I say, one of their joint top scorers last season, and they've signed these two young Greek forwards. So they might not think, right, well, let's not maybe not replace Pedro as a 9, but we'll replace Pedro as a 10 with Gruda coming through. So yeah, I mean, that Brighton are like me in Football Manager, they just hoover up wonder kid attacking midfielders, so it's no surprise to see they've got someone ready to come through.
Yeah, it just feels like they're going to come through, and we like saw snippets of it last season, and you think it's just more experience, they're going to get better. Yeah, it's a bit worrying as a Palace fan, but I mean, as Brighton fans, you must be excited for the new season. I think if you get a few good results at the beginning, it could be fucking flying away with it. I'm trying not to sound so pained in my voice, but it's one of those things. It's so obvious from the outside looking in, isn't it? That it's a very, very well run club, and yeah, pains me to say it.
Yeah, should we move on to another pretty well run club? Maybe a little bit more up and coming than Brighton, feel a bit more established.
Yeah, so moving on to Bournemouth, who finished ninth last year with 56 points and a plus 12 goal difference, with their top scorer being Clivert with 12 goals altogether. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a voice note or anything written in from Bournemouth fans, so you'll have to unfortunately listen to our thoughts on it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you've stated in your notes. I'll let you take away basically that probably the most worrying thing for Bournemouth in the off season.
Yeah, I mean it's what the changes, the amount of changes and how key the changes have been in defence. Like losing Kirkes and Huijsen is like two of your back four. That's so like trying to replace them. When you're a team who try and look for young talent to come through as well, trying to replace them yearly is a really difficult thing. And especially trying to replace good young defensive talent. Huijsen's replacement has come in Adrien Truffert from Rennes. Like that seems like a decent signing. Like French league to the Premier League is generally quite a easier transition, I believe. Like it sort of seems like they do a lot better than some other leagues. So Truffert is another like talented young player. I imagine he's got the energy to play in Iraiola's system, like sort of bombing up and down the left flank. But where they replace Huijsen, I know they have Marco Senesi and Zabani currently at the club, but you need at least one more like top quality centre back. Given Huijsen replaced Senesi in the sort of like last half of last season, they have made a lot of money from these outgoings. So I think Huijsen was 50, I think Kirkes was about 40, 45 maybe. So you're looking at almost 100 million from two players. They've re-signed Antoine Semenyo in the front line, so it doesn't seem like there'll be many changes go in the forward area. So it's more like just about the defence and seeing if they can retool in that part.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like, what's happened with Bournemouth in the off season is my worst nightmare that I would ever have for Palace in an off season. Like, I don't mind losing like forward players or whatnot, losing like your strongest defensive players, your keeper, just like that spine. Like, because I don't want to be doom and gloom for Bournemouth if I'm being brutally honest, but that's what you build a foundation on to stay in the league. Like, you can lose forward players and still stay in the league through your defence. If you lose your whole defence, then you got to start really like not panic buying, so like panic signals going off. And like, even if you do get all that money for it, how you can't trust that you're going to spend it that well across that many positions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's my frustration with that system of play. Like it's sort of what Dortmund have done for so many years. Like we'll buy young players and we'll sell them off at profit. Eventually, you hit a road, and it's still early in Bournemouth's sort of like tenure of doing that. It's probably only been in the last couple of years since they got new owners, sort of thing, who have done, like they've implemented that kind of structure of looking at young talent who have resale value. But eventually you run into a situation where you can't replace them, so they might see some regression this year if they can't get the right young player in. Like replacing a player of Dean Huijsen's quality, even though he is so young, like is a really difficult challenge. Like I think Truffert to Kirkes will probably, I believe it will be a lesser, like I think that's a good enough sort of like replacement, and the drop off might not be that bad, but I'm not seeing a lot of like encouraging signs about who they might replace Huijsen with, and they might have already done so. It might be really impressive, but that's going to be a really, really key position to replace. And then, as you say, also Kepa's gone, and like he had such a good season for Bournemouth last year, and they've seemingly replacing him with Petrovic from Chelsea, and it's like, okay, that's a bit of a gamble maybe.
Am I going too far and saying like I'm a bit worried for Bournemouth this year, like in relegation terms, not like top of the table terms, top half of the table? Sorry.
I wouldn't be as worried for them. I think the one thing that we have to give them credit for is keeping Iraola this season, because doubtless there were clubs looking for a new manager who would have knocked on Bournemouth's door.
You say that, but I feel like a lot of managers were all linked towards that Spurs job, and it was like it could have been anyone out of Iraola, Glasner, Frank.
Well, I did read that Iraola was asked, like he was like asked if he was interested And I think he said like he wanted to stay put at Bournemouth maybe for at least one more season.
That's it. As soon as that job though got filled, it felt like, okay, every other manager's safe. Fucking, do you know what? I've just said that, and we're definitely going to put this out. And like 3 managers are going to have moved. God damn. But yeah, yeah, I am a bit wide for them, but I guess we'll get more into that into our predictions pod just at the beginning of the season. Anything else you want to touch on Bournemouth before we move on to Brentford?
Nah, let's go to Brentford.
Nice. Okay, so Brentford finished 10th with 56 points with a +9 goal difference, and their top scorer in Buemo with 20 goals altogether, who, as we speak, is currently still at the club. But yeah, we'll see how that changes over due course. And yeah, so we have our resident Brentford fan, Jamie, who's given us some insight on how he thinks Brentford are going to do in the season.
What am I expecting for the upcoming season? Well, I'll start by saying that generally I'm quite an optimistic football fan, which is not obviously the case for everyone. So I'll sort of start by saying that I think generally the feeling across Brentford fans for the upcoming season, from what I've seen on socials and from talking to people, is slightly less optimistic than it has been for the last few years. Pretty simply put, like losing such a successful manager and a lot of backroom staff in Thomas Frank and his assistants to Spurs, and then our other assistant Klaus Norgard, who I don't believe has another job yet, along with the probable loss of Brian Mbeumo, the probable loss of captain Norgard to Arsenal, and then some rumours flying around about some certain other players. Of course, that's a big chunk of the spine of your team gone, and in such a successful stint from a brilliant man manager and tactical manager as well, in my opinion, like of course you're gonna lose out from that. So it's understandable that people are slightly more concerned. And when I say concerned, I don't think too many people are stressing out about relegation. I'm certainly not. But of course, like the upward trajectory that we've been on for a long time might be at risk. Personally, I am more optimistic. I usually am. Brentford is such a brilliantly run club from top to bottom that my default is to trust the owner, the director of football, in all the decisions they make. They haven't really led me to not believe them for any period of time, for a long period of time, actually, even back to the League Two, probably League One. League Two might be pushing it days. 2009 was the year we got promoted from League Two. So, what's that? 3 promotions in a very short space of time. But yeah, I think with Keith Andrews in charge, we've got a complete unknown. It's impossible to comment in terms of his background, because he doesn't have one. And the guys we're bringing in, we're recruiting from within essentially to be with him. So all you can look at, or I like to look at, is the success in which we've recruited from within before, and that essentially the club almost runs itself. That's very simplistic, but the club finds a way of maintaining its presence and maintaining its way of doing things, kind of regardless of who's in charge as head coach. And that's the thing that keeps me mostly optimistic. And we've got some seriously good players. We need to keep hold of Collins, and we need to keep hold of Wissa ideally. But yeah, we've got some seriously good players and already some good signings, and Keller and a few others knocking on the door. So very optimistic. Bring on the season.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie, there. Jamie in Melbourne now. I want to wish him luck on his journey to become a semi-pro golfer, which he's working on quite hard, I know, at the moment. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff with Brentford at the moment is, well, in all honesty, now we've got to like 8th, 9th, 10th. There's a bit of a trend with teams like trying to hold on to players, isn't it? And I guess that's pretty expected, I guess, because as soon as you do well in those parts of the tables, the teams at the top look to be like taking everyone they can.
Yeah, this summer in particular, it feels like the other 14 are getting raided quite a bit. Like, maybe it's just because we're doing the podcast and we're a bit more sort of attuned to what's happening in the other teams and the players going off. But man, it feels like the Sky Sports 6 are like cherry picking some of the best players in the other 14, right?
I think it is happening more than usual. It once again just doesn't seem fair with it all. But it all comes down to like the model of your club and how you are prepared for that shit to happen, if it makes sense. So like using Palace as an example, yes, we have these release clauses for players, but they're done in such a way where it's like, okay, this team is going to come in, we're not going to accept less than that, and we're going to make it tricky as hell for you to like do it. Because like Arsenal fans at the moment trying to get Eza, they're all being like, oh, we'll give you 40 mil. It's like, no, his release clause is 68 mil. He can happily go, just pay the money. And they're like, nah, we're not going to pay that. It's like, well, fuck off then. But yeah, I feel like Brentford done well to hold on to Embremo this long. Like, they must be doing something right with how much they're sticking firm on how much they want for him, aren't they? Like, actually, I saw in the press, it's basically like, no, we don't have to sell him. We want this much money for him. You're going to pay it for him. And yeah, it's good to see Brentford's model working in that way. But also, I'm worried for Brentford's model this time because it's the first time it's going to get stretched in the Premier League with new management, and it's just like they're going to be trying to play the same system because, from my knowledge, they're a club where it's not really it's really not about the manager. It's about a coach who plays a system that they've embedded like throughout everything in their system. And it's just going to be interesting to see how that actually happens. Is it just all going to click and they're going to keep going along, or is it going to be a few losses at the beginning of the season and then panic, bring in a manager who can maybe stable the ship? I don't think Brentford will do that, do you?
No, I don't think so. I think Jamie hit the nail on the head, and kind of what we mentioned when we sort of discussed the Thomas Frank departure. It's like Brentford have got so much goodwill in the bank with Brentford fans, and the way that they've run the club, the way that they brought Thomas Frank into the fold, the way that they've replaced players like Ivan Toney, etc. Like throughout the years, like Ben Rama, Watkins, and all of that. That you kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt and trust them right now and say like, right, whilst we're both a bit pessimistic fans, if you had taken this situation, put it at West Ham or Palace, we'd both be losing our shit right now and thinking relegation is
I wouldn't be doing this pod with you. I wouldn't want to talk about football.
You'd be in a dark room crying.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you put it in Brentford's situation, losing the manager, losing key players, you have to, until we see that they're not able to do that, which everything points to this being the time that it blows up in their face. Like the such a big managerial loss and such key players, such like important, talented players, losing that, everything would point to this blowing up for Brentford and them struggling this season. But until we see it, I'm not going to say that they're going to be struggling for relegation.
Like, I was talking to a Brentford fan at work about this, and he was like, who's the new manager? It's Keith Andrews, isn't it? Is that his name?
Keith Andrews.
Yeah. So he was like, I can't believe we've replaced like Thomas Frank with Keith Andrews. And I'm there like, yeah, but didn't Thomas Frank get the job by being like an assistant to the manager, who was a Dean Smith at the time?
Dean Smith, yeah.
Yeah, so he was assistant there, and then he slotted in and brought you there. I was like, surely it makes more sense for you to get the manager that like knows the system, he knows the ins and outs of it all. I think losing the backroom staff of Thomas Frank might be a bit worrying, but I don't know the ins and outs. Maybe that happened with Dean Smith as well. Like, surely it's more beneficial to have him there, slot in, keep the team doing what they're doing. Yes, you may lose personnel, but I'm sure Brentford will have people to come in for that personnel. I think that's a lot better than they're being linked with Scott Parker, and I think he comes in, and then it's about him, and it kind of ruins that whole club dynamic. Do you know what I mean?
100%, yeah, I agree. And as I say, like until they prove us that it won't go right, we need to see and wait for that to happen. Like, we can predict that it won't go right because Keith Andrews has no skins on the wall with his managerial career, but I guarantee you people were saying the same thing about Thomas Frank when he took over, but it was in the Championship, so maybe it had less more national eyes on them, and it was a bit more Brentford fans maybe saying, as Jamie sort of said, like by that point they'd got so much goodwill with the owners that they were just like, they probably trusted it quite a lot, whereas now we're looking at it with the Premier League guys and it's obviously a lot more scrutiny about it. Like who is Keith Andrews, like what's he going to do and stuff. But as you say, like it is a system thing, like it's a club wide thing. Like I don't think it's all going to be on Keith Andrews. Like they brought in some really talented assistant coaches as well. Like I know they got Arsenal's under-21 academy coach sort of thing. So like they've brought in like a good staff to replace what they had lost, but in that keeping that coach from within, promoting him to the head coach role. Hopefully they're banking on the consistency of that keeping them going. But if we turn to the sort of like the playing staff as well, like losing Christian Norgard to Arsenal, that's really killer. They've signed Jordan Henderson as a replacement, and that doesn't feel like a Brentford signing for me. Like it feels very much like almost like a panic. Like we need some experience. We need like an experienced midfielder in the fold. Like let's get Jordan Henderson.
That one I really didn't get. I wanted to touch on like the Norgard sign to Arsenal, which I thought was a weird one. Not because he's not a good player. I was just like, I don't see Brentford. Like I don't see why Brentford sold him. I guess he's quite old, isn't he? Isn't he 31?
I think he's 31. Yeah, I think at that age, I think Norgard probably said to Brentford, "I want to go." Like this is probably it's his last chance of playing at like a Champions League level club. So I don't think necessarily Brentford wanted to stand in his way, because it's also like the last chance they'll probably get any sort of money for him. Like it's not a lot, but at least like it's something for a 31-year-old that they can bring in. They brought in Jordan Henderson on a free transfer. Obviously, probably be decent, like quite decent wages he'll be on, but they might be able to that whole reinvest in that 7-8 million that they get from Norgard into other positions. Like as you say, they're holding firm on the Mbeumo fee because they can, like they run the club so well that they're not in a financial position where they're like unlike West Ham, who have had to sell Kudus because we needed to buy players. So it's like we need to get someone out to get someone in. Brentford doesn't feel like it's run like that and hasn't ever done.
No, exactly that. I mean, I don't really understand the Henderson one, but maybe he'll prove us wrong. I mean, I think a lot of people lost faith in him after he went to the Saudi League, in all honesty. But I mean, maybe. No, I don't want to get into too much of that, if I'm being brutally honest. Cool. Anything else you want to touch on Brentford before we wrap it up for the week?
I think just the last bit about Kelleher replacing Flecken, that like we mentioned it before, so we won't go too much into it, but that's another like big change. Like it'd be really interesting to see how Kelleher displays as a number one. Like having been so sort of like highly rated for a few years as a backup goalkeeper, replacing quite a experienced head in Flecken. We'll see what happens. It
is interesting. Like I always feel like when you see keepers like a second choice keeper doing well, it's like, okay, it's good Spurs, you just see it, can they do it over a whole season? And that's where it can get a bit sticky. But yeah, let's see what happens with that. Cool. Okay, let's wrap it up there. I think we did quite well with everything. So yeah, we just want to say rate and review the podcast and tell your friends, because we want to get out there a bit more so we can get a bigger net for fans to send in voice notes next season. And yeah, I want to give another shout out to Mark's pod, 100 Things We Learned About Film. Like I said, Tom will put that in the show notes if anyone's interested in seeing any film, what's the word I'm looking for, insights into films and whatnot, go there. And yeah, otherwise feel free to follow us on socials at Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky and Reddit at Other14FC Podcast, and email in at Other14FCPodcast@gmail.com. But otherwise, yeah, Tom, I'll see you next week for part 2 for our pre-season reviews.
Yeah, see you next week.